we are so much more effective when it comes to dealing with the environment and when it comes to dealing with public health, when we work not just in a vacuum, but work on a regional basis.
So Connecticut wants to join Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and D.C. in the Transportation Climate Initiative, aimed to reduce carbon emissions and invest in clean energy infrastructure. Opponents say it would result in a gas tax.
It's the kind of tax where our poorest people will simply pay for it again and again and again.
Folks who are suggesting this is a gas tax are just peddling misinformation here.
While it's true no direct gas tax would be proposed, the initiative caps pollution levels and charges gas wholesalers extra if more fossil fuel is consumed than what is allowed under the pollution cap.
Those that sell it in a wholesale level are going to have to absorb that, or they're going to pass it along to the consumer.
That will make everything more expensive that travels to us over the roads, including groceries.
The Lamont administration has promoted urgent climate action, noting that over the next several years, flooding will get worse, droughts more common, storms more severe, and the average temperature could increase by 5 degrees.
We have to take urgent action now to prevent things from getting even worse after 2050.
And Governor Lamont says it's not a guarantee that wholesalers would pass along the extra cost, noting they would want to remain competitive in their pricing.
I need the naysayers to give me other solutions for our transportation fund. This is my second effort.
His first effort, tolls, failed. And there's a question if this regional approach to transportation investment would allow Connecticut enough control over how money is spent.
Instead, this money will tax Connecticut's people, but then it will go to a bunch of activists and academics in Washington, D.C., who will decide how the money can be used.
It will be completely up to Connecticut's discretion about where we invest those dollars.
And for as many northeastern states signing on to this initiative, many are also hesitant, including New Hampshire, Maine, and Vermont. It's estimated it could cost the average household an extra $260 a year in fuel expenses.